Hello everyone, welcome to the session of SQL. So in the last video, we have discussed about the introduction to SQL. In this video, we're going to discuss about ETL process. So let's share the screen and start the video. So here, we're going to discuss in today's video, data flow and ETL concept, right? So here, the word data flow, right? This word refers that we are going to discuss about the flow of my data, right? Flow of the data, how the data is flowing, right? Now the question is that where data is going to flow, right? So here, data flow describe how data is moved from one system to another system, right? Suppose I want to download like COVID data. So what I can do? I can go to the government website and download the data. So here we can see the data is present on my government computer, government server, right? Here I request from my computer, I send a request. What is request? I want to download COVID data, right? So what happened here? As I send my request to COVID data, and the government server, when it sees that a request is coming for downloading, so it will send back the data to you, so that the data will be downloaded in your computer in local system. It will be downloaded, right? So here you can see the data is flowing from government server to your computer, right? So in this way, the data is going to flow. So data is flow through a network. Generally, you can see here, right? If we have no internet, no network, I cannot directly download the data from the government website. I need to go to the government office and then need to take the data from there, right? But here you can see, we can see that here data is flowing from one computer, another computer through a network. This is called data flow, right? So why we require data? We require data for storage, for processing, or for the analysis purpose, right? So that is called data flow. Here, data flow generally describe like how my data is moved from one system to another for storage, processing, or analysis purpose, right? If we see the typical pipeline of data flow is that source, then staging, then transformation, then loading, and then the target, right? So suppose if you work in some company, right? And what you want to analyze some data set of like sales, something like that. So what you can do, you can go to the database server, right? And download that, and you can use for the analysis purpose. Generally, that is a flow, right? But here in warehouse, in data warehouse, how data is stored? That is a question. In data warehouse, how data is going to store? That is a question, right? For example, I download the COVID data from the government server, right? But in the government server, how the government employees keep the data in the data server of the government, right? That is a question, right? So keep the data in data warehouse. This is a process. This is a process called ETL process, right? In ETL process, what we are doing, we download the data, or we can get the data from different sources, then transform it. Transform means clean. So once the data is extracted from different locations, from different sources, the next one is that we need to clean the data. Once the data is clean, the last step is called load. So if we have load the data into data warehouse, right? So if I talk about that, the COVID data that is present in government server, right? So what happened? How the data is kept in the government server? First it collect from different sources, right? From different state. This is like Delhi. This is like Bangalore. This is like Mumbai. So data is downloaded, or data is collected from different state. Once the data is collected, in the local system of government, then we perform the cleaning. Once the data is clean, then we load the data in government server. So in this way, the data is going to store in government server, right? So this is the procedure. So here we first extract the data from different state. Extract means collecting the data. So we're collecting the data from different states. Once the data is collected, in the second stage, we are cleaning the data. Once the data is clean, we load the data in the government server. Now, tomorrow, some people are coming, they requested to the government server for downloading COVID data. So what happened? The government server will send the data to the local system. So in this way, the data is going to flow, right? and behind the data that we keep in data warehouse, right? There is a process that is called ETL process. And ETL means we extracting the data, we transforming the data, then we loading the data, right? So why we use ETL process? So ETL process is used to prepare the data for the analytic purpose, right? Today, if I want to analyze the COVID data set, right? So what I have to do? I have to download the data from the COVID website, from the government website, and I will get the data so that I can analyze it and create a reports and charts and that we can use for the upcoming time, right? So in ETL, we have an extract, transform, load process. So let's discuss more about the extract. So extract means we collecting the data from different sources, right? Source means this is a location where data originally comes from, right? So example of, for example, like application database, Excel, CSV file, API, CRM system, transaction system, right? So these are the data sources from where we can collect the data, right? For example, like we have an e-commerce website, right? In e-commerce website, I can get the data of the people who order the product from different like who ordered product from different products like that from different category. Like some people order like furniture, some people are order like beds, some people order like order technologies product like that, right? So in e-commerce website, I will get the information of the all people who order from my website, right? So that is called source. The source means source is a location where data originally comes from, right? In day-to-day life, if I can say that source is like that e-commerce website, right? From e-commerce website, I can download the data set like what like the list of customers who ordered the product from the website, right? So that is called source. So I hope the source is clear. We can say source is also called extract. So extract means we extracting the data from different sources. So that is called extract. Now let's come to the next point. The next one is staging. So what is staging? So staging is a temporary area, right, where we keep the raw data before processing, right? For example, if I download the data from the COVID website, right, what happened before analysis? What I have to do? I have to keep in my local system so that I can analyze it, right? So this is for staging area. So staging area is a temporary storage location, right, where we keep our raw data. So raw data means like unclean data. There are a lot of missing values are there, lot of unnecessary columns are there that we have to clean it, right? So before cleaning, right, we have a process that is staging area. Staging area means location where we keep our raw data, right? That is for staging area. What is the purpose of staging? The purpose of staging is that so that we can clean the data and validate the data, right? So this is a step before transformation, right? For example, the raw sales data from different sources first stored in staging table before processing. For example, like that, I take the sales data from my finance department, right? So that I can use it for the as is purpose. So where I can keep the raw data this time. So I can send a mail, right? And like I need last 5 months sales data. So finance team sending me the data on a mail, right? So I can say mail. Mail is the location, right, where I keep my data, right? So now after when I going to clean, before cleaning, so what I have to do? I have to download from the mail. So I can say mail is my staging area, right? Where I keep my data, where I keep the data temporary for the temporary process, right? So this is called staging area. Staging area means this is the area where we keep our data for temporary purpose so that we can use it for the cleaning purpose, right? So that we can use for the transformation purpose like that. So I hope the staging area is clear. Now let's see the next thing. Transformation. So in this step, what we are doing, we are cleaning the data, right? So that our data gets structured and convert into useful format, right? So as we know, what are transformation? Transformation means we are going to clean the data, right? What type of cleaning? Cleaning means we can remove the duplicate, we can handle the missing values, we can convert the data type, we can perform aggregation data, we can standardize the format, right? So here, what we are doing in transformation, what we are doing, we are cleaning the data. Cleaning means we removing the duplicates columns, duplicates values, removing the missing values, missing data that is present, and convert the data type propers into appropriate data type like that. For example, here this is a cleaning step, right? Suppose our date format look like this, right? And what am I expected format of date? Expected format of date is YYYMMDD, right? So in this way, we can cleaning it, right? So we can apply the cleaning step as per our requirement. So that is called transformation. So transformation means this is the step where we clean the data and convert into useful format. So we can use it for the next analysis purpose. So that is the transformation is required, right? So I hope the transformation point is clear. Now let's see the next. The next point is loading. So now once the data is cleaned, now we can load the data in data warehouse so that my upcoming developers can analyze the data or analytic team can analyze the data, right? So what is loading team? Loading case. So loading is means we process the data finally to data warehouse. We're loading the data into data warehouse, right? For example, once the government is collecting the COVID data from different state, right? After that, they clean the data, and after the cleaning, they can store the data in data warehouse, right? So in this way, data is going to store in my data warehouse, right? So the target system of loading data is data warehouse, data mart, analytic database. So these are target system where we can load our clean data, right? For example, cleaned sales data is loaded into data warehouse where analysts run the SQL queries. So here in data warehouse, we store our sales data, right? So that analysts can use SQL queries to analyze the data, right? So I hope the loading concept is clear. What is loading? So loading is the last step where we can load our data in data warehouse so that we can use later for the analysis purpose. So I hope the loading point is clear. Now, let's see the next thing. So let's see a real world example of ETL. For example, Amazon sales data pipeline, right? So as you see that customers are ordered, right, from different locations, different sources like that, right? So what we are doing, we first collecting the data from the order database. After that, we keep the data in a staging table section, right? So that we can use the cleaning purpose. Next step, we remove the duplicate order, we calculate total order values. So we applied a transformation. Once this is applied, then we loading the data into data warehouse, right? So that we can create dashboards and report, right? That basically help me to solve the business problem. So this is called the real world example of ETL concept, right? That is called Amazon sales data pipeline. So in this case, what we are doing, so customers are order the data from different databases, right? And they keep in the staging area so that we can clean it. Once the data is clean, now we can apply the transformation steps, right? So after transformation, we can load the data into data warehouse so that we can create dashboards and reports. So this is a real world example of ETL concept. So I hope this point is clear. Now, the next one is server. So what is a server? So server is like a computer or you can say system that provide the data, services or resources to other computer over a network. For example, we can download the data from government website, right? So how the data is downloaded? Because the data is stored in the government server, right? So here a server is like a computer or a system that can provide the data to other computer through a network, right? So that is called server. So example of servers are like database server, web server, application server. So database server generally store and manage the databases. Web server generally used for the hosting the website, and application server that generally used for running the applications, right? So for example, when you run a MySQL queries to proceed our data from the database server, right? What we can do, we can run a SQL queries. So when we run a SQL queries, right? That queries is a request that goes to the server and server will return the data. So I hope the server point is clear. If you want to see the practical example, like how the ETL process, how we can download the data. So let me show you. So here we have a website, right? You can see we have a website. In this website, suppose I want to download the COVID data. So I can write here COVID dataset download. So I send a query COVID dataset download, right? Now what I can do, I can download here. I can click on the download, and now you can see the data is going to download it. So data is downloaded here, right? So here you can see this is the server, right? The data was present in the government server, right? And here I send a request, right? I send a request of download request, and as a return, I get the data from the government server. So in this way, we can download the data from the server, right? So if I want to open it, I can just click double click, and you can see data will be opened into Microsoft Excel. So I hope this point is clear how we can download the data from the data server, right? And also we can see the data, the data is generally present in data warehouse. So before keeping the data warehouse, it first go to the ETL process, right? In ETL, what happened? We performing extract, transform, and load. In extract, we extracting the data or we collecting the data from different sources. In the next case, we perform the staging. Staging area, what we are doing? We are keeping the data for cleaning purpose, right? In the next section, we perform the transformations where we are cleaning the data. After that, loading. That is the last part. So in loading case, what we are doing, we load the data in data warehouse so that any analytical team can use that for the analytic purpose. So I hope all this point is clear in this video. So thank you for listening, guys. I'll meet you in next video. Thank you.